so good morning, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. If you're joining us for the first time today, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And I am particularly excited because today marks the beginning of the Nature for All Festival. I am the newfound Canadian coordinator of the Nature for All Network, and in this role, my job is to help bring together some of Canada's greatest nature organizations and individuals to help unite behind the idea of falling in love with the natural world. There are so many incredible organizations doing great work coast to coast to coast across Canada to help provide access to nature, change perspectives on the natural world, and preserve it for generations to come. So we've got 10 programs over the next 3 days. I am so excited to dive in, and thank you so much for joining me. Now, to kick off the festivities, we are joined by Rob Wallace, and he is a principal at Outward Bound Canada. Outward Bound has been the leader in getting youth into nature through adventure and exploration for over 80 years globally and over 50 years in Canada alone. Rob's going to tell us a little bit about the story of Outward Bound today, all the great joys you can have in the outdoors through their organization and so many other ways. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring in Rob to take us away. Thank you so much for joining us to kick us off, and have a wonderful program. Let's do it.
Thanks, Jesse. I just want to thank the organization Nature for All. We've been a partner for a number of years, and it's great to be able to be part of this as our kind of first piece of action, really, to explain what we do and how we make the natural world accessible for our youth. I also want to thank Exploring by the Seat of Your Trousers for inviting us along and recognizing Outward Bound as a key partner as well. So as Jesse mentioned, we've been around for over 50 years in Canada, and we are privileged to be programming coast to coast to coast on land that has been stewarded for thousands of years. And I just want to acknowledge and thank the stewards of that land. All the way from Vancouver Island to Nova Scotia, we program, and we're grateful to be able to use that land. Here, I'm in Toronto, and this is where our head office is in our Toronto Urban Centre. We're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Huron-Wendat. And it comes under Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and also the Williams Treaty that was signed in 1923 with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa. And before those treaties were signed, there was a covenant signed between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe called the Dish with One Spoon Covenant. And I really like the description of that, because it explains that the land that provides our food, that provides our recreation, that's the dish that we share and respect. And we show that we share by taking from it with one spoon. I really like that analogy. It really helps me think of respecting the land and sharing that land. So I thought I'd start with a little bit about me. So as I mentioned, I live in Toronto. I have 3 children. This is Samuel. He's 5 in this picture, and just a little story about how sometimes we forget about how important that connection to nature is. So we went for a bit of a hike around Thanksgiving, and we were, I don't know, late for Thanksgiving dinner or something. I'm tapping my foot, thinking, come on. Benjamin and Sam were busy picking up rocks or something. It turns out they were picking up shells. And of course, with young boys, young people in general, there's always, when they're siblings, there's always some kind of competition, like how many of these shells can I hold in my hand without dropping any? So every 2 minutes they're stopping and they're picking another one. They've got these piles of shells, and I'm saying, come on, let's go. Turns out then there was this big leap of joy, these screams of delight, because when these shells warm up, we thought they were empty, but it turns out they weren't. When they warmed up, these snails start crawling over themselves, going up their arms and everything. We did wash our hands before Thanksgiving dinner, but just the delight that was on their faces really brought it home that, it doesn't matter if we're late for Thanksgiving dinner, but what does matter is really nurturing that connection to nature. And with Outward Bound, we really immerse people in that natural world. This is a video that I found yesterday that I thought I'd share with you. I hope it works. This is basically me and my kids traveling to school on the first day of snow. Look at that little guy. He's so excited about the first snow. And the funny thing is, it's the kids that are in the front on our travel to school. That's me at the background. I'm so excited on the first day of snow. My kids are the ones who are saying, come on, Dad, come on, we need to get going. So Outward Bound has a long history. And rather than listening to me drone on about it, I'm gonna hand it over to someone who's far more eloquent than me, Jeff Horvath, who's on our board, just to talk about where we come from.
Outward Bound, the world's most recognized name in outdoor education and experience-based learning. It's always an adventure, but it's more than just a holiday. It's about taking a journey into the unknown and discovering that there's more inside you than you ever imagined. I'm Jeff Horvath, and I saw how Outward Bound can change lives on the very first course I ever did 15 years ago. It gave me the confidence that I could make a positive difference in young lives. It was started in 1941 by two men, renowned educator Kurt Hahn and shipping owner Lawrence Holt, during the darkest hours of the Second World War. They were responding to an urgent need. How do you prepare young people to face the harsh and seemingly hopeless challenges of wartime shipwreck? Their answer was Outward Bound, a 28-day survival and resiliency training program that aimed to build courage, tenacity, compassion, and an undefeatable spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. Outward Bound has stayed true to its original roots and uses a simple model. We take small groups into unfamiliar environments where they must solve real-world problems that have real-world consequences. Since 1941, Outward Bound has been adapted to meet the critical needs of our times.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So as Jeff mentioned, we started in World War II, a global crisis, the largest war that humanity has ever experienced. Now, there's still conflict in the world. We still focus on building respect for diverse viewpoints and social-emotional intelligence. But really, more recently, what we've realized is the delivery of environmental education, of building environmental leaders, is a true focus of Outward Bound as well. And so really, that's the crisis at the moment that we're hoping to solve through our education. So we're still focused on resiliency, building resilience in youth, especially coming out of this pandemic. We're still focused on improving those social connections, building emotional intelligence, but also focusing on that environmental leadership. It's such a golden opportunity where we can immerse people in nature. Sometimes for up to 32 days, we have expeditions that travel on the land. We live on the land, we eat on the land, we sleep on the land, and we travel through the land for anything from 5 days to 21 days to 32 days. And then during that time, we have various service projects. So one of which, for example, is tagging old growth trees. So geolocating them, tagging them, so that they're protected against logging. And those combined with our leadership training is really a force to provide and to create environmental leaders in the future. We're still global. We're in 35 different countries around the world. That little red dot, that's me. I'm stood right there right now. But 35 different countries. We're on 6 of the 7 continents. There's not many people live in Antarctica, so we're not there. We visited it, but we don't have a school there. And we have 38 schools, so some countries have more than one school. In Canada, we have a base on Vancouver Island where we go surfing and sea kayaking. We're in the Rocky Mountains where the main activity is backpacking and mountaineering. We're up in northern Ontario, so around Algonquin, which I know some of you are from Bracebridge. That's very close to where we program, and Georgian Bay on the other side of you as well. So that's backpacking and canoeing. all the way over to the Bay of Fundy. Some of the largest tides in the world are at the Bay of Fundy, where we go sea kayaking and hiking around there as well. And then we have 2 urban centers. We realize that being in these incredibly remote areas is not very accessible for all. So we've opened 2 urban centers, one in Vancouver and one in Toronto. And I'll focus on the Toronto one later in the presentation. First of all, though, if you want to get your devices out, we've got a Kahoot quiz for you on some of the things I've been talking about and to learn a little bit about you.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for the beginning of the program today, Rob. I will get this Kahoot up for everyone to see on the broadcast screen in a minute. If you are joining on YouTube, if you're joining in Miss Forsyth's class or beyond, our game pin is 777-3673. We're going to get underway once we've given a couple seconds for people to join in the class there. But yeah, feel free to sign in. This is great, guys, and we're going to dive in with 4 quick questions and a little bit of a gap before some more. If you do not want to play along in the Kahoot, play along in your class, just talk and answer whatever the questions are as we dive in. So I'm going to kick us off, Rob, and if you can see what we're showing, great, and if not, I'll announce everything as it comes up. Plenty of time to get in. The faster you answer, the more points you get. All right, our first quiz question, a poll for everybody. Who's been in a canoe before? We got folks again live in Bracebridge today. Never, a few times, lots, or I almost live in a canoe. I wish I almost lived in a canoe, Rob. Some of my favorite times of my life are in a canoe. 8 more seconds. I know I got the chance to do a Canada-China field course. We had Chinese students come over back when I was in university. It was the best experience of my life, and I got to bring them all in a canoe for the first time in their lives. So let's see what we got with our drum roll here. Yeah. And all right, 33% almost live in a canoe. A bit of everything.
Wow.
Yeah, I like this mix.
That's great.
All right, I'll take
the
it.
modifications they've made to live in a canoe.
Yes, we can ask that in the Q&A session at the end. All right, our second one. Who's been surfing before? I've never surfed before. It's very sad. So I'm a big never. A few times, lots, or take your surfboard to school with you. People are very unsure in this one if they've surfed before. So far, 0 answers. You guys can get those answers in. We'll see. Don't be shy now. Maybe it's not registering. I don't know. Well, we'll ask our folks if they've had a chance to surf before in the class. I can always bring them up for a second. Let's see. So we didn't get answers to that one. Miss Forsyth's class, you guys want to unmute? What do we think? Who's been surfing before? If you want to raise your hand, you can check it out. No one's been surfing, like the whole class. Okay, we've got fairly landlocked Bracebridge. There's not many waves on Simcoe, a little south. Okay, Rob, you've been surfing many times?
No, I have been surfing. I didn't go surfing until I was 40 years old.
Wow. Okay.
So there's still time.
There's hope for me too. I'm excited. Okay, how many countries is Outward Bound in? They did announce this. Now we're getting tons of answers. Oh, it's doing its weird thing. Kahoot's acting strange today. It's keeping us on our toes. So there's some real answers, and there's many hundreds of answers. I don't know what's going on. 5, 15, 25, or 35. All right, 2 more seconds, and our answer is, drum roll again, 35 is our correct answer, which is really impressive.
That's great. That's good feedback for me. Somebody listened.
Somebody listened. Whew. It's always comforting, I find. Okay, our last question before our pause. Let's see. How long do you think our longest course is? They did mention this. This was mentioned. 4 hours is a very short course. You go out, you go for a paddle, you come back, you're done. Whew. Venture in the outdoors. 1 week, 21 days, or 32 days. Dun, 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 dun. All right, our class. Again, Kahoot's going a little crazy. Adding answers for no reason. I don't even know what's going on anymore. This is half the fun of video broadcasting. But 32 days is our correct answer, as Rob said in his chat. Excellent.
Fantastic.
All right. We will take a pause there, go to slide number 5. At least the mystery answers were pretty even, and we got a lot of people saying 32. That's good. All right.
Great.
Pause the quiz on this slide here. So, Rob, take us away.
Okay, so back to the presentation then. So I kind of want to really introduce to you what happens on an Outward Bound course. So this is a picture of the first day. The students have just arrived. The instructors are busy prepping. They're getting the canoes off the trailer. We meet students at the trailhead. It's a really nerve-wracking time, but it's a different situation, and it might be with complete strangers that people are with. And so the group, what we call, is forming at this point. They're really getting to know each other. Now, I don't know whether in your class at the start of the year, your teacher has ever done any kind of icebreaker games, some silly games on the first few days. You know, sometimes some people check out and go, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm really, that's so lame. I'm not going to do that. These are really important times. It's where you can build trust. You get to know your different peers. And so I really encourage you, if your teacher does that, to participate as much as you can, to try and really build those relationships with your students. It's so important on Outward Bound course as well. It really puts people on the same level playing field. Hopefully by the end of the first night, we've got to know each other a little bit. We're sat around a campfire. We're now cooking this gorgeous meal, whatever that is. Kind of looks like porridge. Anyway, but we're starting to have discussions and conversations about, you know, what went well today, what didn't go well, and that's what we find is the norming area of the course, where people are really working out who's going to be the leaders, who's going to be more reflective, who's the joker in the pack, and then something happens that maybe a long portage. For those who don't know what a portage is, you have two lakes, and in between them there's a path, and you have to get all your stuff from this lake to that lake. And you have to do that by carrying it. You have to carry your canoes, you have to carry your food, you have to carry all the packs. And it might be 1 kilometer or more in length. You might have to do it more than once. So there and back, and there. So to make sure that all your kit is there. So people get grumpy sometimes, but it's really okay to be grumpy. That's where we call it storming. That's where we really out how to deal with our own emotions, how we can experience, okay, this is really tough. If I can do this, next time it's going to be a little bit easier. You also work out how you can deal with other people when they're in a bit of a mood. You know, well, maybe they need some space, maybe they need some help. You learn how to build empathy for each other when they're going through tough times, if you've already been through a tough time. So you get back to norming, where things settle down again. Things are more relaxed, but of course, someone's all going to up the challenge again. So here we are. There's somebody who's collecting firewood, and maybe they're thinking, why am I the only one here with this big pile of wood? Why is nobody else collecting firewood? And they go back to storming. Somebody comes to give them a hand. They go back to norming, but then it starts peeing it down with rain. Now we've got wet wood for a fire. We might go back to storming. So that wet wood, I'm going to kind of take a little bit of an aside from talking about, you know, Outward Bound in general, and I'm going to explain how we're going to make a fire with wet wood. So to make a fire, any kind of fire, but when we're building a campfire, there's 3 things that we need. We need fuel, so we need wood to burn. We need some kind of source of heat. That might be a match. If we're really good at rubbing 2 sticks together, then we can do that using a bow drill. But we need oxygen as well, and there's oxygen in the air. So heat from wood, we've got our match fuel from wood. We've got our match to provide the heat, and then if there's not enough air, we might blow on it. If the wood is really wet, then what we can do is whittle down into the middle of that wood. So the outside is the only part that's going to get wet. And so long as we haven't cut down a new sapling, which is never a good idea, that wood is going to be dry in the middle. Also, we need to pick up wood that's dead, but it's not been on the ground for a month or more and is really rotten, because then we're sure that it's dry inside. And we can use an axe or a knife to try and get into the central core of that wood where it's always dry. Now, when we're building a fire, we need to really think about those 3 things: fuel, heat, and oxygen. And we start with tinder. Now, tinder has a lot of air in it. So it's got the fuel and it's got the air in it as well, but it burns really quickly. You can't make a good long fire with tinder. So you would start with tinder. And then as the spark starts to burn, then you add more and more small pieces of wood to it. Some examples of tinder, maybe some lint. Some people take lint. So that's the kind of fluffy stuff that's in the dryer pipe. It's really combustible. It really catches fire quickly. So you need to clean that out at home, but you can take it with you on a camping trip and you know you've got some dry tinder. Or birch bark is really good as well. If you find some birch bark on the ground, the layers of bark have air between that really is good tinder. So you add small twigs to that to catch that flame. And only when those smaller twigs have caught, you can add bigger and bigger twigs, and then eventually add those logs to make it a really good solid fire with fuel wood. And you'll see here there's a nice, it looks like a permanent rock circle around for safety so that that fire doesn't spread out to the woods around. When you're camping, it's a good idea to make some kind of rock circle around like that so the fire doesn't spread. Make sure you're not creating a fire on roots so it doesn't spread to trees. But then once you've left, if it's a wild country campground, so it's not one that's revisited many times, then you can put those rocks back where you found them and make sure that you're leaving no trace that you were ever there. So that's how to make a fire in the wilderness. And once we've made that fire, then we can enjoy it. We can have conversations around it. We can talk about good things, bad things that happened that day, and really enjoy what we've created. And at that point, the group is now performing. So the group is almost independent from the instructor. The instructors are still there. They're looking after, they're kind of a safety net, looking after things if things really go wrong and the students haven't got the experience to deal with it. But in general, towards the end of a trip, we have what's called final, where the students are doing everything by themselves. They're using the skills and the techniques they've learned. They've built that resilience and their social emotional intelligence to be able to be a really good group together. So I'm just going to explain now our operation in Toronto. So a few of you might know Toronto. We're on the lake, on Lake Ontario, and there's some gorgeous green spaces. All these green tracks here are cycle paths and ravine paths. It's a city within a park. And here we are looking from the CN Tower, and you'll see Toronto Islands there. This is an area where we canoe and we camp on. And it's a real asset because we're so close to the town centre, but it's a real natural wonderland there. We use public transport. Here we are on the TTC, which is the transit system around Toronto. To get to these places, we canoe right in front of downtown. We camp on Toronto Islands opposite, and this is us canoeing around in the evening from our campsite on Toronto Islands. And then we get the go. We introduce students to the local transport system so that they know how to access these spaces to get to the Rouge National Park. It's the first and only so far urban national park in Canada. It's bigger than Central Park in New York. Every so often, the CN Tower peaks above the trees. You can see it there from the Rouge. And then it's home time. Then we travel back, we take the go again, and off they go to these happy souls. They're tired, they've got all their kit with them, and they're on their way home. So we'll just introduce the second half of the quiz now, Jesse, if you would.
Perfect.
And see how you do with this one.
Having grown up in Toronto my whole life, I wish I got to go on expeditions like that, but it is a fantastic city to explore just for fun when you're going out on your own. Let's bring up that second half of the quiz. Again, same code as before, everybody. We've got 777-3673 if you guys want to bring that up. We are good to go. I'm going to start us off with our next question. All right, so 9. How heavy do you think a full backpack is? I know this from personal experience. 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 10 pounds, or 200 pounds? What do we think, folks? Again, our answers that are coming in aren't necessarily reflective of you guys in the classes, but if you guys want to mull it over, answer in Kahoot anyway, that is great. I know the one time I had a full backpack, it was about exactly 50 pounds, and that's our correct answer.
Wow.
Excellent.
I had to look that up. I didn't know. Well done.
I bet you did. All right, let's go to our next question. What do we got here? Number 7. What is not part of a good, safe campfire? Fuel wood, tinder, gasoline, or kindling? Okay, ever not to get this right. Again, Kahoot's having a bit of a connection fit. We shared a little bit about fire. I hope all our students have had a chance to make a campfire themselves, even not just be around one, but help make them. It's such a different experience and such a really fantastic opportunity, I think, to, especially here in Canada. So gasoline, not part of our good, safe campfire. No gas, Rob, whatsoever. Not a good plan.
Right.
All right. And we'll head to our next one. Let's see. All right, 8 of 9. Which of these is not part of the fire triangle? Air, water, heat, or fuel? Dun, 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 dun. All right. I think fuel and heat are I'm pretty confident they're involved. Having been around a few fires, I got a good feeling. I think air is sort of around everywhere. Water when I want to end that fire. And lo and behold, that's our answer. All right. One final question coming up. And we'll wrap up the conversation from there. This is great. Let's bring this up. All right. Ooh, multi-select. Okay, more than one answer. Where can you go with Outward Bound? Atlantic Bay of Fundy, Rocky Mountains, Vancouver Island, Northern Ontario. I got a good feeling about this. Who can remember back to the beginning of that conversation? I've been lucky enough to, I haven't been on Vancouver Island yet. I've been everywhere else in this thing. I've been to Vancouver. I'll have to join you guys, I think. Sounds like a lot of fun. All right, our correct answers, all of them. Rob, you guys are everywhere. Fantastic, guys. So again, I know Kahoot gave us a little bit of trouble today, so we'll stop sharing there, but thank you so much for playing along in your class on YouTube both, and I'll bring it back to your presentation.
Great, and we're basically this is the last slide. One thing that that is at the heart of Outward Bound is making these experiences accessible. It's really expensive to get students out into remote places, but it's really important. The learning that happens on expedition is second to none, and one of the great examples of how Outward Bound can really impact on a large scale is Outward Bound Singapore, where 100% of high school age students have the opportunity to take a course. So I think that's a reasonable target for Canada, that every high school student in Canada should be able to take an Outward Bound course. We've got quite a few outdoor ed centers. Different school boards have outdoor ed centers, which are great, and they're fantastic, and they do wonderful work. I really want to see people on extended expeditions. It's not for everybody, so that's why we've got the urban centers. But it would be fantastic to see more people getting out into the wilderness and into the natural spaces of our urban centers. And then the other figures here are just some idea of what the impact is. So 86% felt an increased ability to make friendships from diverse backgrounds after a course. 87% were able to deal with challenges more positively through those storming pattern, being able to cope with things. And then 86% are committed to playing an active role to improve the environment. So I'm going to finish there. Thank you, Jesse, for the opportunity. If your teacher wants to take down my contact details and if there's any questions about how to get their students outside, then please contact me. But thank you very much.
Fantastic, Rob. What a lot of fun. I mean, honestly, I'd heard about Outward Bound when I was a kid. I never took part in one of your immersive experiences personally, but I'm really heartened that you guys are back doing all sorts of great stuff amidst a pandemic and sort of slowly but surely getting out of that. We are going to take questions from our live class, so Miss Forsyth's class. Please get those thinking caps on. Anyone joining on YouTube, feel free to share there as well. I guess my first question is, You began your program with this land acknowledgement. This is something that we're going to be hearing a lot throughout our Nature for All program series. Is there a push to incorporate more Indigenous stories into the programs you do, or get Indigenous students out on these expeditions, Rob?
So yeah, we have a strong program for Indigenous students. We work with Indigenous partners and communities. We don't provide cultural programming, Indigenous programming ourselves, because that's not our responsibility to do that. Or I mean, in fact, it would be irresponsible for us to pretend that we can provide that on an organization-wide basis. Some of our instructors are Indigenous, and they bring their own knowledge and their own culture and experiences with them. But what we do is we acknowledge that we're on sometimes stolen lands. We acknowledge the history of that land and who came before us. And by the very fact of living and journeying on the land is so important for all students. In particular, Indigenous students, which sometimes have lost that connection with land. So that's what we provide, is that opportunity to connect with the land.
Fantastic. We had our Secret Path Week back in October with about 20 programs with Indigenous speakers coast to coast to coast across Canada. And that was the one universal that a current that underlined all their programs, is the idea of being respectful of the land, feeling that you're on the land. It's sort of an ethos that's sort of been lost in a lot of contemporary society, and it's starting to come back in a really positive way, something that Nature for All is all about as well. So I'm really glad you shared that. I'm curious, for folks that, maybe they're not comfortable going with a group of people just yet, maybe they're home, maybe they've never heard of this before. What are some ways, people finish this broadcast, they're done, they've heard your story. How can they go get immersed in nature wherever they might be joining from across the continent? What would you do to sort of get that excitement going?
Yeah, I think, we're coming up to winter, and winter is really hard. But I would say that the hardest thing is stepping out of the door. Once you're outside, even when it's raining, when you're camping or when you're inside a building, you can hear the rain splashing on the roof, and you think, I'm dry, I'm comfortable, I don't really want to get out there. Once you're out there, once you're in the rain, you hardly notice it. When we're close to school or close to home, we can always nip back in and get some dry clothes on. When we're camping, we want to take some dry bags and make sure we've got that with us. It becomes a little bit more of a challenge to keep things dry. We need to keep dry to keep safe. But just make that break from the front door and get out there into the ravine. If there's a day that you're wondering what to do, then there's things like geocaching. Around Toronto and in many other cities, there's discovery walks that will help you get into those ravines and discover it. So I think, just getting out the door is my main advice, I think.
It's our main advice in all our programs too, so I'm glad that that's echoed by you guys at Outward Bound. The May family, they want to know what ages are able to participate in Canada. Is there an age that you guys begin doing expeditions? Is there one where you're capping it? What's the deal?
Yeah, generally, we're a secondary school, a high school, which means that as far as we deliver high school credits, and so they're for our longer courses, so the 21 days, the 32 days, we can apply high school credits to that. But in our urban centres, we have some shorter courses, and they go from age 12 and up. I think when we get to wilderness, it becomes a little bit more intense. So generally age 14 and up, although we have gone younger. We have in the summer, we have open enrollment where people can sign up themselves, but we'd love to work with teachers and with schools. As I mentioned, we are a charity, so we can provide funding for that if there's some available. Obviously, it's very popular to allocate that funding. But yeah, so great. So age 12 and up. We can also come to schools to provide programming at schools, and then 14 and up to more immersive kind of expedition.
Fantastic. So the May family, I know your oldest child is like 1 year away from that. So I hope you get the chance to join in. And I really do encourage you guys and anyone else joining us today, outwardbound.ca, at Outward Bound Canada. You can find out more about the amazing stuff that they do. There's so many great resources. And again, you know, my first experience building a fire, I was 7 years old. I did this with parental supervision, of course, but the sort of experiences that Outward Bound specializes in getting people involved and engaged with, you can start that at home, on camping trips, close, you know, wherever you might be joining from across the country anytime. And I really do encourage you to do so. It's such an impact on your life and such a special opportunity. I'm curious, Rob. So you highlighted these amazing places that you're currently doing activities. Are there plans to go to other places across Canada? We're a pretty wide and diverse country with a lot of exceptional places. What's the future hold for you guys at Outward Bound?
Yeah, we're definitely working on, I mean, as part of being accessible, and you know, one thing that arose from the pandemic is the restriction on interprovincial travel. And so being able to provide those experiences closer to where people live. We're certainly, we meet students at the trailhead. So we have done different programs in Saskatchewan, in Manitoba, and also in Quebec. So I think Quebec has a great history of outdoor education. The province has really grasped hold of outdoor education and connection to the outdoors as a key factor in recovery from the pandemic. And so we also have a lot of Francophone instructors. So probably as a result of that. And so that's really where we're hoping to grow into in the short term. We're also, as we've mentioned, an international organization. So we're building closer ties with other schools. So, for example, Outward Bound Costa Rica. I speak monthly with various different schools around the world to try and benefit each other. So there's kind of cross opportunities there as well.
Fantastic. Again, what a remarkable thing. I love the Singapore idea, and I'd really love to see that adopted across Canada. We work with teachers coast to coast to coast across Canada, the US, increasingly internationally, and this push for outdoor classroom time and just, you know, discovery learning, getting out and exploring, using things like the Seek and iNaturalist app have been so impactful to so many students around the world. And so, again, it's really nice to see you guys sort of embodying that with the programs that you run. Again, I guess sort of one last question. Time flies when you're having fun, Rob. Is there an experience, you know, you've had the opportunity to work with so many youth across the country. Is there an experience that really, I don't know, stands out above the rest as really touching people or really having an impact on them? Is it building a fire? Is it the chance to portage? Is it being out in the water for the first time? Or is it all of it? I mean, I that could be a good answer.
I think there's a few different examples, and I think one of the most impactful comments I've had from teachers is the difference in students when they get outside. So I'm just thinking back to a program we did down at the Brickworks in the Don Valley in Toronto, and it was, the teacher came up to me and you know, there's some students who were more spirited in the classroom, and really the teacher was having real difficulty helping them focus on classwork. And so they were falling behind with their kind of what they called academic subject. But when they were outside, it turned out that student was the leader. They were really, because of when you're outside, it addresses every single sense. It's differential instruction personified. It's addressing the multiple intelligences. So that those students are really the ones who shine. So I would encourage teachers, if they have students that may seem to be disruptive inside the four walls of a classroom, see what they're like outside, because you might be surprised with how they might turn out.
That is a beautiful and personal answer, and I love it. Rob, again, time flies and you're having fun. What I want to do is make sure people have the opportunity to learn more about the amazing work that you do, both under the Nature for All banner and generally as an organization. So I have brought up some of these links throughout the broadcast. If you want to check out outwardbound.ca, learn about their courses, get your kids involved. It's such an amazing organization, as you had the chance to hear today. And Outward Bound can on Twitter. I really encourage you to check that out as well. With regard to Nature for All, again, this is our Nature for All Festival. We are kicking it off with Outward Bound. Couldn't be a better guide to kick us off on this exciting journey. Check out natureforall.global to learn more about the work that they do, and particularly their Discovery Zone with so many educational resources to keep the excitement about the natural world going. Rob, is there a last message you want kids to leave this broadcast with, whether they're tuning in live, after the fact, across Canada, the US, and beyond? What should they leave with about Outward Bound and why what you do is so special?
Yeah, I mean, a message to everybody would be, as I mentioned before, is just to get outside and get as many of your friends and family outside as possible. And I think, yeah, look at where the closest Outward Bound center might be to you. Have a look at the website. As I mentioned, we are a funded organization in large part for those who need it. It's always, people always sometimes think of Outward Bound as pretty inaccessible, because it is very expensive to do what we do. But there are funders that realize the importance of it. And so they're allowing us to make it more accessible, and so that those financial barriers are removed.
Fantastic. And I mean, the experiences that you highlighted in this program, the impact it can have on lives for many years to come. You know, if you're going to spend your money on one thing, of course, it's obviously important to make sure that it's as accessible to everyone as possible. But if you're going to spend it on one thing, I would put a plug in for you guys any day. Rob, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us, sharing your story, taking part in a fun interactive quiz. We'll end the broadcast there. I really appreciate this, and kudos on your great work at Outward Bound. I look forward to learning more and sharing it with our teachers in the months to come.